It's 4 o'clock on a Monday, and you know what that means. It's time for another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live. Yeah, baby! Woo-hoo! This week starring special guest star Miss Lydia Ashton. Yeah! Welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, band. Thank you, fake audience. Let me get the volume turned down a little bit and get the chat room open so we can see our friends. Hi, guys. How are you? So, I'm half asleep because we just got done doing the road rally. I got home 11:30 last night. We were all walking zombies. I had really big bags under my eyes. You look pretty good.
Yeah.
Lydia was supposed to do the second half of the show today because a gentleman from Norway was going to be here and interview me for the #1 music magazine in Norway, which probably goes out to a very small group of people, I would imagine. And he got a stomach virus, so he can't make it today. No flashes. And he couldn't make it today. So Lydia was kind enough to come early. And the reason I'm excited that she's here at all today is that I've known Lydia for, 7 or 8 years now, I think. And she was kind of amongst the core group of taxi members that really latched on to the community aspect of what we do early on the forum and at the road rally. And she knitted herself or became knitted into this group of people that would all take a bullet for each other. And she was our honoree for the John Braheny, what we used to call the John Braheny Songwriting Award, and then we realized, hey, half the time it's going to be for composers. So now it's the John Braheny Award, or as we call it around here, the JB. John Braheny, of course, being kind of the godfather of song consultants, and he taught me so much about what this company is, about screening and educating, and passed away a couple of years ago. So we named the award after him, and I'm very happy that Lydia is here today and the recipient of the award. So we are going to do a little bit of what we did at the road rally on, was it Saturday or Friday? Friday. That we did the stuff when we made the presentation. And I interviewed Lydia on stage, and we're going to do that today. So I'm going to shut up and start asking her questions. Actually, I'm not going to shut up because I'm going to read your letter. I guess it was some months ago that Lydia sent this to me. And, geez, was it... I don't have the date on it. Do you remember when you first sent me the very first email?
I think the first one was sometime in March.
Okay.
So it was in the spring.
Of 2015. Mm-hmm. And it said, last spring I got... this is what I said on stage. I don't have my wits about me at all today. Dear Michael, you recently asked that members report their deals, so here's a letter sharing some of my successes. I'm very thankful to you, or very thankful that you started Taxi and for how you sincerely care for all the members. I have much to thank you for. I joined Taxi in the summer of 2008. At the time, I'd scored several indie films, but had never written for TV. Since then, I've learned so much through writing for Taxi listings, as well as through being active on the Taxi forum and attending the Taxi Road Rally. Go Road Rally. Being a mother of 3 who's homeschooled my children for the last few years, I've not been as active submitting to listings or writing music as many of my colleagues. The last few years, I've spent about 15 to 20 hours per week on music, and she says, if even that, parenthetically. And I wanted to mention, I think that that's more than a lot of people are spending. So even though you were busy, you're still ahead of the game. That said, through staying focused and using what I've learned through Taxi, I've still been able to accomplish much. I would not be where I am without Taxi. I'm very thankful for the things I've learned through Taxi and the connections I've made. I signed a couple of pieces due to a forward back in 2012, but most of my success is due to networking. Is due to networking done on the Taxi forum and at the Taxi Road Rally. Here are some numbers. I've signed with 15 libraries since joining in 2008. I've signed 348 pieces since 2008. 95 of these are collaborations. Never underestimate the power of collaborating, which we talked about a lot at the Road Rally. I had my first placement in the summer of 2010. I've had about 3,000 placements since then. Counting reruns and foreign airings, I've had about 12,000 plays. My music has been used in over 85 TV shows, and it's been heard in 150 plus countries. Due to connections made on the Taxi forum, I landed the main title theme for the Nate Berkus show, which was a co-write with whom?
David John.
David John?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think I've ever met.
He was a taxi member, I think, around that time.
Okay,
so-
but not now. Because
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever met him. But anyway.
Yeah, he never came to a rally. He should.
Yeah, he should have. Let's see. Got that syndicated daily talk show on NBC, which aired in 2010 and 2011. Taxi gave a stay-at-home mom from the middle of nowhere, which is Tennessee, right?
Yeah.
What's the town?
Cleveland.
Cleveland,
and
Tennessee?
It's,
Just by-
3 hours south of Nashville, half hour north of Chattanooga.
Okay.
And it's,
So-
I mean, we have a field of llamas as neighbors. It's really in the middle of nowhere.
I'm jealous.
Yeah.
I want to retire from taxi and raise goats so I can relate to that. I don't know why, but there's something appealing about getting up at 5 in the morning, feeding goats, milking goats, and calling it a day. Anyway, let's see. Taxi gave a stay-at-home mom from the middle of nowhere a chance at a career writing music for TV, and I'm so thankful I get to earn money doing something I love. Thank you. Best regards, Lydia. So, and then she had a PS said the children went back to school last fall, and thus I am now spending more time composing. Watch out, world, here I come. I love that part. So I got a follow-up email from Lydia a few months after the letter I just read to you, and Lydia told me that she found out that her total play count was actually 103,000 and change placements. She also told me in that letter that her music had played 1,436,262 times on Hulu. She also told me that a short film that she scored in 2009 has had over 15 million views on YouTube in China alone.
Yeah.
And after that email, I got another email from Lydia which reads, "Hi, Michael. Yes, the income from all sources are indeed a healthy and welcome addition to the family finances. It's quite awesome to get paid to do something one loves. I realized after I sent the last email to you that I did not take into account placements on one show has had some cue sheet hiccups, and they're still getting resolved. The good news is that I should get a very nice payment in the not-too-distant future since hundreds of those placements were on big networks. Estimating based on the other NBC placements, my total play count sounds like plate count. My total play count is closer to 350,000. Pretty crazy amazing. Now I understand why shows on NBC, CBS, and ABC pay so much more than the shows on cable TV. The play count is huge. You asked me if most of my successes have come from relationships built on the forum and at the rally. Yes, with an exclamation point. Out of all my placements on TV, only 8 came from a deal that had nothing to do with anyone or anything taxi related. I knew the music supervisor for that show. Those placements have earned me a total of $4. That deserves a woohoo! No, it deserves a yeah. Out of all the libraries I've signed with, only one had nothing to do with anyone or anything taxi related. I signed with them back in 2008, and they have gotten me 0 placements so far. Nada. The other 15 libraries happened because of relationships made on the forum and at the rally, and that is where all the placements and money have come from. I feel a deep gratitude toward Taxi. Taxi has given me so much, the opportunity to earn an income doing what I love, lots of amazing friends, which you could definitely see at the rally, and colleagues, and a greater understanding of the business, and I've become a better composer thanks to advice and feedback from Taxi and its members. Thank you. Best, Lydia." So, I read that on stage, and then down at the bottom said, Lydia's last email had a PPS at the bottom. It says, "Thank you for hosting the rally every year. It's one of the highlights of my year. I always come home inspired and energized. See you in November." And I said, "Yes, she will." And then we played this, which I can't play the video without a lot of clunky stuff on Ustream, but I want to play you the audio from her reel so you can hear a montage of stuff that this young lady has done.
is Christmas. Every day is Christmas because of
I feel like holding up the bottom. Even our audience in a can loves it. Anyway, just amazing stuff in there. And once again, I'm just so proud of you. And
Thank you.
On stage, it was really hard for me. I think I'm going to get choked up now. Anyway, as I mentioned earlier, the award is named after John Braheny, who inspired so much around here. And his wife, Joanne, dropped by a little while ago. So I am going to endeavor to pan over and show you Joanne, which is right there, and there is Nathan, Lydia's husband, and the kids all sitting over there.
The kids are here. Did it show? Show it up.
Yeah, not much light over there. They're over there. Trust us. They're eating cookies and chocolate. So if you hear crunching noises and see kids bouncing off walls, you will know why. Anyway, so then we brought Lydia up on stage and we did a little interview. So I'm going to re-interview you.
Yeah.
We've been sitting here very patiently waiting for all this stuff to go through. So where did I go? Oh, there it is. Okay. So we already talked about where you live, next to the llamas, which is cool. And now they know that you're married with kids. And how many years did you homeschool the kids?
3 years.
So that's a full-time gig, right? I mean, homeschooling one kid would be.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had this thought that I would homeschool them and I would compose full-time and,
How did you have that thought?
I don't know. I thought homeschooling would be really easy. I guess that it would take a couple of hours every day. And it turned out that it didn't.
Yeah.
So I realized pretty quickly that if I actually wanted to stay sane and ever get any kind of sleep, I had to back down on the composing.
Which had to be kind of like putting a racehorse in a cage for you because, I mean, you've been doing this basically your entire adult life, right? You went to school for it.
I did.
You're from Sweden originally, right?
Yeah.
And where did you go to school and what exactly did you major in?
Well, when you live in Sweden, before you go to high school, you pretty much pick your profession.
How is that possible? Not that I think that, I personally love that idea, but how would you know when you're like 12 or 13 what you want to do?
I don't know.
You did.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you do if you grow up with that because you think about it earlier. I don't know. I mean, not everyone knows. But so I knew I wanted to work with music, so then you apply to the high schools.
Doesn't everybody apply for music? I mean, yeah, it seems like everybody would apply for like the fun jobs, you know?
So, you audition, you send in your grades, and they say yes or no. So I moved away from home at 16
Wow.
to attend a high school focusing on music.
How lucky.
So, yeah.
I mean, that's living the
pretty
dream.
awesome. So, right. The theory, the choir, all of that stuff.
And how many years were you in school studying music?
That was 3 years.
Okay.
And then I went to Bible school for a year. And that's where I met Nathan.
Okay. Oh, I didn't know. You Bible school in Sweden and that's where you met him? What were you doing over there?
Same thing.
Okay. Not music, though.
No, I
No,
was,
you just
I was
go-
there for your seminary. Yeah.
But how did you end up in a Swedish seminary? You were an American. Well, okay. So were you like in a Bible study program here where they send kids abroad, or what?
No, I had finished up my undergraduate and decided I wanted to spend some time kind of discovering my faith.
Yeah.
And I met a guy who went to this school, and it was really, really good for him. It was healthy for him. So I went and visited and liked it. So I went for a year.
And you
And
met-
I got
Yeah,
an amazing Swedish wife out of the whole thing.
you really did. You scored big
Bonus.
time. Yeah. Well, and then I've always been impressed by the fact that you put your family first, because musicians sometimes can be a little self-centric, and
Yeah.
it's all me, me, me. Not every musician, but just some that I've met along the way. And I think that's quite a sacrifice for you, but just my personal opinion, not that I get to judge you or anything, but I think it's very honorable and cool that you put the kids first.
Thanks. To finish up. Sorry.
Yeah, oh yeah, sorry.
That's okay. We spent a year apart to get paperwork in order.
Okay.
During that year, I took another year of music, and I'm not sure how to translate it to American education. It's folkhögskola, but it's kind of...
Yeah, we don't have that here.
kind of in between high school and university.
Okay.
So, and that's only music subjects.
Wow.
So, and then I did get a college degree here in the U.S., where I studied composition. for
And that
4
was
years.
after you guys got married or moved here?
Right.
Okay.
Where?
Wow.
So,
Where?
at Oral Roberts University in
Oh.
Tulsa, Oklahoma.
So, all right. So then you started having children, and then you decided to homeschool them.
Yeah.
And then something happened, which was a major setback in your life, which you told me you were comfortable speaking about on stage. So I'm assuming that you're comfortable here, or do you want me to just
that's
turn off the camera?
Yeah. No, it's fine. And
Okay.
that was actually before the homeschooling.
Oh, okay.
But
Wow.
back in 2008,
Yes.
a lot of things happened. I became an American citizen, which
Congratulations.
is really cool. I
Welcome
joined
home.
Taxi, which I'm so happy that I did.
That's all right.
Right around the same time, our youngest daughter was in a near drowning. And she was given 50% chance of surviving, 5% chance of surviving without brain damage.
That's a scary
And
statistic.
it's really scary.
Yeah.
And
Can't even imagine how that felt.
now we were given a miracle. That's how the doctor worded it, because she recovered fully in 3 days, which is like unheard of. But
By the way, she's sitting right over there.
she is,
Very healthy, we're glad to report.
yeah. But it left the family a mess.
Yeah.
The emotional, and I mean, I felt like I must be the worst mom in the world that this could ever happen.
I can't imagine you being the worst mom,
It's-
but I can understand how you might go through that. Okay.
And then there were some other things that happened, like right after each other on that same level to our family, and just left us in pieces. And I ended up in a really dark depression. And my doctor told me, you need help. This is not going to go away on its own. And the thing is, I didn't feel like anything had changed. I felt like this is how it's always been.
Wow.
That
You were
there's
so far into it that you couldn't see it from the outside anymore.
right, and I felt like, what do you mean need help? There's nothing can change. Life is just so bad that nothing can ever change.
And didn't Nathan say, honey,
So-
I think that, you're acting strangely and something's wrong, but you couldn't see it?
Yeah, I think I was probably pretty hard to reach at this point. And I pretty much I would sleep or watch TV or play computer games, because then I didn't have to think and I didn't have to feel. And the one productive thing I would do would be to compose. So I'm so glad I joined Taxi, because I would read the listings and I would have that. I would write for the listings.
That's funny, because I remember when you first joined and I first met you, probably within your first year, you came to a road rally. And I would have never known.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us knew, but at some point you reached out to your fellow Taxi members.
Right. So I had a wake-up call about a year and a half later, when Guinevere, who was 4 at the time, asked if we could play. And I usually said no, and for some reason I said yes. She handed me a Barbie, and her Barbie said to mine, "Do you want to see my mom? She lives upstairs in her bedroom. That's where she sleeps. We can't wake her up because it makes her angry. But when I miss her too much, I stand there and watch her for a while."
Oh.
And I realized that she was talking about me. And she was talking about her life. And I was missing life. I was a ghost of sorts. And I'm so thankful to Nathan for holding our family together during this time. So I called my doctor.
Husband of the Year award over
Yeah,
there.
really. I mean, yeah, I'm thankful I didn't lose my family, because I really wasn't there. And so I called my doctor and said I need help, and we talked about different ways to fight depression. And the one thing my doctor said, no matter what you do, you need a support group, and it needs to be people that were not in the middle of all of this when it
Right.
happened.
Right, like not immediate
So-
family members or friends that live
That were
nearby.
also, that would also need to work through things. And right. And those friends were people I'd met on the Taxi forum.
Definitely a better choice than the
So-
llamas that live next door, I
Yes.
must say. And you made, I remember when you became part of that community, it was Matt
Yeah.
Hurt and John Mazzei and Dave Walton. I mean, I can...
It's a
think-
good group of people.
and they're all
amazing.
still, all of you guys, there are probably 10 or 15 that were part of that original group that would all take a bullet for each other.
Yeah.
And you guys still hang out at the road rallies every year. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And think about that. When I joined Taxi, I expected help with my music.
Yeah.
But I didn't expect to find a second family. And I did.
Or people
It's
that were, strong enough and emotionally stable enough, which can be hard to find amongst musicians sometimes, that you could lean on them,
Yeah,
and
really.
rely on them. I'm not amazed because I know all of them.
right.
And
And
any one of them, you would look at them and go, "There's a really great person." But
Yeah.
as a group, pretty powerful.
yeah. And it was a big ask, because for the first few months, I talked to them every day
Wow.
about just, this is what I'm going through today. It's an awful day. This is what's happening. Or, but they were there.
Wow.
And just,
That's hard to get even, out of family and immediate friends. It could test
Yeah.
somebody's patience. Like,
Yeah, right.
After a week of that, it's like, okay.
Yeah, it's like-
heard enough now. Well, I'm really,
Yeah.
really happy that, people can fall into a bad group of people. Like, you always fear that your kids will go to high school and fall in with a bad bunch of kids.
right.
And you joined Taxi and fell in with the perfect bunch of kids.
Yeah.
That's an incredible story. And I'm happy that you got through it. And look at the end result. You've got a beautiful family to be grateful for. Yes.
Yeah.
and and a wonderful husband, and
Yeah.
you're really blessed because you get everything. You went from having this kind of a horrible life, or at least horrible period of your life, to
Right.
this very blessed period where you've got all of that,
Yeah.
and you're doing what you love to do, which hardly anybody really gets to do.
That's true.
Most people don't really love going to work every day. So let's talk about the work.
All right.
Let's talk about music and talk about your process for figuring out, which I loved because it really, what you explained on stage really echoed something that I opened the road rally with. So I was loving when you were saying it. See, I even need support. I really do.
Yes.
I'm always trying to drive these points home, and when somebody who's actually done it says, "Yeah, it worked for me." So tell the viewing audience how it is that you decide what it is that you're going to, the kind of cues you're going to write in the process that goes on from that point forward.
Yeah. once I either have a request, so I know I need to do this genre, or I decide this is the genre I want to do because one of my life. Okay, actually, let me back up a little.
Right.
I keep a spreadsheet where I keep track of every placement I've ever had, so I can see exactly how much each library earns me for what genre, what pieces has gotten me the most money, and that way, when I get if I have, okay, sorry, I'm thinking faster than I'm talking, or talking faster
so
than I'm thinking.
basically,
Anyways,
but you're analyzing the numbers so that you're spending your
I
time
am.
productively.
right. So then when I get a request, or even if I'm in between requests, I can look at that to decide what I want to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
So once I picked a genre, let's say it's dramedy, I will find a show that uses that and watch several episodes, like 3 or 4 episodes in a row, and just pay attention to the music. How is it used? What instrumentation? What tempo? How do they use it to get the emotion across?
How many episodes of Desperate Housewives have you watched?
Lots.
Probably too many.
Yeah. And then I take a break, go for a walk, drink some coffee, but not too long. You don't want to forget, the
How long is a break? Like a
emotion.
15-minute break or a 2-hour break?
Maybe it depends on the day, but I'm leaning more toward the shorter.
Okay.
Just to keep, because it's really all about emotion, and you want to kind of keep a hold of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So then I open up a DP session and start recording ideas. And usually just short snippets, anywhere from 10 seconds to a minute.
And is there a particular sound that you work with, or is it just like piano, or do you ever start with strings or horns or pizzicato violins, or is it always just a basic piano thing of just the melody and the tempo?
Most of the time it's piano for me.
Okay. And so then you've got this collection of stuff in Performer, and at what point do you go back and decide which of them looks like the most fruitful choice to move forward with as far as finishing it and fleshing it out?
It can be anywhere from, I usually at least sleep on it,
Mm-hmm.
because I want to go back with fresh ears.
Okay.
So it can be anywhere from the next day to several months later.
Wow.
And I do keep track of those ideas. I love spreadsheets.
Yeah.
But I keep track of that in a spreadsheet too, saying that this file has 10 ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And then I say idea 1 is in this key signature. Right now I have 10 seconds. And I was thinking kind of like this show, or with these instruments.
Okay.
I did 2, so I can go and look at that spreadsheet when I need whatever it is, dramedy. I can go and see, do I have any dramedy ideas already? And I know where to find it and kind of what to expect.
So when you do one dramedy piece, and let's say you do it in the key of A and you do it at a mid-tempo, will you go on and do other variations using that same basic idea or some of the same sounds, as long as you're kind of in the dramedy space, or do you just finish that one piece and then a day later, let me ask you this. How long does it take you to finish a piece, like a dramedy piece? Is it something that's 3 hours, or is it a day and a half, or is it a week?
Well, I've never really timed it, and it's really wide range, but it's about, for a full orchestral piece, I probably spend 10 to 15 hours.
Okay. And what about something that's smaller, that's maybe 6 or 7 instruments? Like a small ensemble kind of piece.
Let's say piano and strings. I do a lot of that. I'll probably spend 3 to 5 hours.
Okay, so you could do 2 in a day if you're feeling particularly
And solo
productive.
piano, anywhere from half hour to a couple of hours.
Wow.
So you have to look. Suspense, I probably spend 4 to 6.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something I look at too when I decide what I want to be working on. Do I want to make 1 piece this week, or do I want to make 10?
So you're looking at this as a business. You're still a creative person. I know you well enough that I'm guessing you haven't sold your soul to do stuff that's commercially viable and brings in income. And you're looking at it from a scientific and business perspective.
I am, and so there's a balance between.
This is why she got the award.
between doing things simply for fun, but also thinking about, well, what will be used, because it is a business, and I need to pay my bills and feed the kids.
Your kids eat stuff other than cookies and chocolate? Amazing. I wish more people would do that. You probably heard me preaching that stuff from the stage all weekend at the rally. Just because you're doing stuff that earns income, you don't have to feel bad about it. Creative people often feel like, it's my art and I wait for the muse, but you've been able to harness the muse and make her go to work for you in a productive way just because you're tracking the fact that you know about how long it takes you to do these pieces, which ones have the highest probability of getting placed by which libraries, which ones have the highest probability of earning the most income because they would probably get used on this kind of show versus that kind of show.
Right.
All that stuff. Were you in the room when I did the thing with Chuck Schlachter?
Yes.
Okay, so as you heard, we did a session called Retire a Millionaire from Your Music or something like that. And we showed how if you start at 35 years old and save $1,000 from your musical income the first year and then like $1,500 the next year, I'm just guessing at these numbers without pulling them out right now. Anyway, over time, between 35 and 65 years old, with compound interest at 5%, it is possible to retire with $1.67 million. I think I'm doing this from memory. And obviously, like Chuck would say on stage, the disclaimer is I'm not a financial advisor. But the point is that you're doing exactly the right thing. You're looking at doing something that you enjoy, but doing it in the most productive, efficient way possible, and doing it in the way that is likely to bring you the most income.
Right.
It's just brilliant. Everybody can do this if you really want. Just a hint. Do you have a massive home studio, like with $50,000 worth of gear? Yes.
Not really, no.
I didn't know what answer I was really looking for. I didn't ask you this on stage, Odell. All of a sudden I was looking at her eye, like, maybe she does.
No, I really don't. It's pretty small. Up until last year, it was in a corner of our basement.
Okay.
And that room was also playroom, library, workout room, guest room, and TV room.
Okay.
So it was a very noisy room. So I would sit in my corner with my headphones, and then I would say, "Everybody out!" So I could listen and really hear it. But I did almost everything on headphones until the final mix.
Uh-huh.
And at that point, I needed it quiet. But
do you have a lot of outboard gear and an expensive console? Or are you doing everything on a computer with, and everything in the box?
It's in the box.
Yeah.
I do have a nice keyboard with weighted keys, but
that's not so extravagant.
not so. Yeah. So, and then a year ago we moved the studio to a room that's. It's still a walk-through room, but it's not a play TV room, workout room, guest room.
Right.
So it's a little more quiet.
That's good.
Which is nice.
And is it fair to say you've got like $10,000 to $20,000 worth of gear if you add up the price of the computer, the keyboard, and the software? Is it in that range?
Yeah, I'm sure I do. It's added up over the years. I don't know. I keep adding libraries.
But
I don't know, Nathan. Any guess?
I've lost track.
But if you look at the stuff you're currently using, because yes, you could buy a library for $2,000 4 years ago that's now outmoded, and you want to buy.
Yeah, that's true. Right.
So
that's probably a good guess.
Okay, so it's not expensive to get into this because a lot of guys think, if I want to compete with somebody like Lydia, I would need to have this really just all out studio that would look like it'd go on the cover of Mix magazine.
And really, the most expensive is the orchestral, because you will pay a lot for the different instrument groups. Right.
So. As somebody was pointing out yesterday, I think at one point during the rally, they were saying that it was Nick Murray was talking about the fact that like one library will sound a little mellower in tone and recorded with more distant microphones, where another one will be recorded up close and sound more strident, and so you may want to combine the two, things like that, just to get a better sound.
Something about that.
Yeah.
When I first started out, I was talking to someone who was way ahead of me in the game, and he said, "Don't go out and buy a bunch of sound libraries just because it's cool. Wait until you need it." Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, but it's so much fun. So I bought a lot of things that it turned out I didn't need and didn't use. So that's another thing. I try to be very careful and wait until there's a project that I absolutely need it for. Would this actually make the project sound better? Would it actually make it go faster? Or is it just because it's a cool toy, in which case I really don't need it?
Right. I
So-
understand. Having been a studio rat myself, you always want that new cool toy. But
Yeah.
as Matt Hurt has pointed out many times on the show and at the Road Rally, it's more about you could buy a $500 library, and if you learn how to use that to its maximum level, you'll probably get a better result than somebody who has just moderate skills or beginner skills with a $2,500 library. So it's
Learn how to use it.
yeah, it's more about what Matt's point, and I'm pretty sure you would agree with him. It's think like a fiddle player. You know?
Okay.
Yeah, he always says, listen to what horn players do. How their notes trail off, or how they attack the front end of a note,
Yeah.
or listen to how a violin player, when they bow the strings, there's that moment before the bow comes back.
Yeah.
And just because the sample is accurately recorded with a nice microphone in a nice room, it may not have that little.
Right.
And
Yes,
so
you need to know how it's supposed to sound so you can recreate it.
right, and then that takes.
But
That's not something you can get under the tree on Christmas morning and be making great sounds with by dinner time, right? So you mentioned that you use spreadsheets, and I think when we talked before the rally, you mentioned that you use Composer Catalog as well.
I do. That's great.
We didn't talk about that at the rally, and I want to give a shout out to our mutual friend Keith LeBrant. Is it LeBrant or LeBrant? I always forget.
I'm not sure.
I ask him in an email about twice a year, and he always tells me, whatever. Keith, we're going to call him LeBrant. He invented Composer Catalog to organize his own music because he too is a successful composer. So tell everybody what Composer Catalog does. And yes, we're plugging it, but for a good reason, because if you're getting to a level where you don't know where things are, who it's been submitted to, then you should have it.
Yes. Well, you put in all the information, the title, the library you signed it with, the key signature, the metadata. Trying to think what else. Tempo.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everything goes in there, and then you link it to a file so you can listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really nice to have it all in one place. You really need to have it in one place.
So if you
can
did a
find it.
variation of it, then you could just copy that information and create a new record, I guess, and then just update. So like if you did a 30, a 60, and a 90,
And you could link it to that
all
full-length
from that one thing.
Yeah, which is
Awesome.
super nice.
So anyway, check that out at composercatalog.com. Honestly, I had probably 10, 11, 12 people come up to me at the rally and say that they were tickled pink to see that Composer Catalog was a sponsor of the rally this year.
I thought about that too. Yeah.
And it's like it's catching on, and for good
good.
reason. So, hit songwriters use certain song forms, like intro, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, and out. Is there a form for TV cues, or can people just create pretty music and somebody will love it?
For most libraries I write, they ask for a 2-minute cue.
Mm-hmm.
They want it to be one tempo, one key signature, one emotion, and then end with the button
Repeat that
ending.
one more time for these guys.
Okay, so about 2 minutes,
Okay.
one key signature, one tempo, and one emotion.
All right. So, not a bunch of scene changes or look at how fancy this is, but stick with one thing throughout.
Right, so that they
Okay.
can cut easily and create their own, cut out the middle or whatever they need to do.
And you layer the instruments like you might start out with just piano and then 4 bars in, introduce cello, and then another 4 bars, introduce something else, and then at some point drop it back and then build it back up and then crescendo and button ending kind of thing to
Yeah,
keep it
because
from
you do
being-
need to keep it interesting, so yeah.
I know it's hard for people who, if any novices are watching today, really, you just have one motif from top to bottom for 2 minutes. Doesn't that get really boring? But no, not if you know what you're doing.
Yeah, I think most pieces, I do instrumental music, I don't do a lot of songs.
Right.
So I think most of them does have an A section and a B section.
Mm-hmm.
And then every time it repeats, you change something, you add something, take something away, move the melody to a different instrument.
And Do you use intros, short intros, no intro?
Most pieces for me, no intro.
And the A section that you come in with, is that equivalent to like a song chorus, where it's the bigger, hookier, meatier part of it, and you boom right in on that? Or do you start out with something that's maybe more like a pre-chorus and then come in with something that would be chorus equivalent in a song?
Well, having grown up with classical music, I love like when two melodies play at the same time. No, you don't want to
Okay.
make it too busy, but I
And
like
tell
to.
tell them why not.
Well, because it is underscore and it will probably go under dialogue,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't want it to be. Well, if it's too busy, they're not going to pick it. And really, when you look at what's being used, often it's a simplified version or a stem.
Okay, and we'll talk
But-
about stems in a minute. I don't want to forget that because it's
Yeah.
important.
But I like to do a simple melody in the A section and then a different simple melody in the B section, and
Okay.
at the end they play together.
And like,
So, like counterpoint, in
wow.
a sense.
Okay, so fairly sophisticated, yet simplified enough that it's not. I can't remember if it was you or who said it over the weekend. Somebody said something to the point of music is rarely, if ever, the star. I think maybe Frank Palazzolo.
That is so true, though. That's
Yeah.
good. And
Yeah.
we need to remember that. Early on, I made everything, because of my classical background again, super busy. All
Right.
these parts.
Look what I can do.
Right. Which would never work
Yeah,
on TV. Well, I shouldn't say never, but
rarely.
yeah.
Yeah. So a minute ago you mentioned stems, and at some point yesterday I turned around and said, how many people in the room don't know what stems are? And a bunch of hands went up. I mean, I would say most of our members know at this point, but not everybody who watches Taxi TV is a member or has the education yet. So tell them what a stem is.
Okay. And I would like to say, because it's different if you do film scoring versus writing for TV.
Okay, let's keep it in the context of
For TV.
Yeah.
All right. And then a stem would be, it's pretty much you mute some of the other tracks. You would mute the lead, so it's only the underscore.
And
or-
you bounce that to a stereo pair?
Yeah.
Okay, so that you could give that to the music supervisor or the editor, and they could line everything up, I'm guessing, with the beeps or the count off, and then they can pick and choose which part of the pre-mixed mix they want to use?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I actually knew that, but I was pretending to be stupid for your benefit, because that's the kind of show this is. Not that you're stupid, I mean, you know what I mean, the educational value. All right, so how many stems might you have on, like, something that's kind of a medium weight thing where, not the biggest orchestral thing you've done, not the littlest piano cello thing you've ever done, but something that's got 4, 5, 6 instruments in it. How might you break that out into stems?
Well, often the libraries have specific requirements, so you need to look at that. But if they don't, I usually have the full version and then one without the lead. And then I see if I can create a different on top of that. And then some of them want the stingers, so that's like the
Right.
ending.
Something that came up on several panels this weekend, it's almost like fades have become non-existent, even in records, which has to be heartbreaking for SSL because they have the great auto fade button where you can set the time and just watch it go very linearly or otherwise if you choose. So explain what a natural ending would be versus a stinger ending or maybe a buttoned ending. I mean, they're all kind of the same thing, but they variations thereof, no? Like I'm thinking, in my world, I think of a stinger as pretty in your face and definitive.
Right.
A button is definitive but less in your face, and,
Okay.
and a natural ending would just be dun 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 dun, and it fades out on its own, kind of a natural acoustic thing.
Yeah. Okay.
I think maybe John Fulford and I stayed up too late one night and had that conversation. I don't know, but for the longest time we used buttoned ending for every listing, and people started
Right.
asking, what's the difference between a stinger and like a non-faded natural ending and a button? And I think it was Fulford that I asked, and I think that's where I got that explanation.
Yeah.
He's a deep thinker. Right, John? You do a lot of collaborating, fair amount of collaborating. I forget what percentage you said, maybe like 30-40% of the stuff you do is collaborative.
Yeah, I think it's been, it's probably a third of
Okay.
everything I've done.
So let's talk about the collaboration process. And I'm guessing most of your collaborators don't live next door with the
With the
llamas.
llamas.
Right. So
Yeah.
you collaborate with people from other states and other countries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And how do you know which collaborator to choose for which project?
Well, I think it depends on the genre. I think that's the first thing I look at. What is this a genre I can do alone? So am I bringing someone on simply because it's fun or because it would go faster? Or am I bringing them on because I can't do it on my own?
So they're strong in an area that you're not as strong in.
Right.
And let's talk about the time element, because that's got to be critical, I'm guessing. If a library owner reaches out to you and says, Lydia, I need, a pizzicato string dramedy piece, and I'm going to need 3 versions by Friday. Are you up for it? And it's now Tuesday, and you go, yeah, I'll take that on.
Mm-hmm.
And you realize that you need somebody to play, I'm trying to think of something you might not play, but classical acoustic guitar, maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe.
there you
Okay, good, because I didn't know if you played that or not. And you reach out to one of your friends that you've met at the Road Rally or on the forum and ask them to contribute that part. So what is it that you send to them that they then work with on their end?
We send audio files.
Okay, and
So-
like as a WAV file or an MP3?
Well, if I'm going to do the final mix, I might send them an MP3 to work with,
Mm-hmm.
but request better quality files back.
Right.
And it depends on what the library wants. So I tell them I need WAV file, whatever, the details. But if I did some tracks with Terry recently, so he does guitar and I did piano. And I started one of the pieces. I laid down the piano first, and then I sent him an email with information on tempo, key signature, the chord progression, and I told him some ideas I had that maybe we could do this.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I just say, do whatever you want to.
Do you send him just a rough piece with the count off on the top so that he knows where to start?
It does have the count off, yes.
Okay.
And then the piano. And he records his parts.
And sends
then-
it back with the count, and then you just line up the clicks of the count.
And do the mix. Yeah.
Okay. Easy enough.
So easy enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing, when you think about a mere, 10, 15 years ago, couldn't have done that very easily. It was probably doable, but you would have needed like ISDN lines or something, and just more complicated.
Yeah.
So now let's go back to the timing of it all. And you're on, starting on Tuesday, and you have to deliver a final by Friday. Do you ever run into situations where your collaborator gets held up and says, "Oh, some weak excuse like, I had a heart attack and almost died," or maybe I had the flu, something a little milder.
Yeah.
And then you're going to blow this deadline because they're either unprofessional, which I doubt if you'd reach out to them in the first place if they were, but let's assume they had some sort of problem. What do you do in a situation like that where you're counting on them to meet your deadline and your credibility with that library is on the line? Have you ever had those problems or no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That actually happened on a really big project I was doing.
Of course. Wouldn't happen on a little one.
Yeah, and it's a hard situation. So I started thinking, this was a project I really could not do it on my own. I could not finish it on my own. So I started thinking, do I know anybody else? And in this situation, I didn't. So I had to call the library, which is not a fun thing to have to do. And
They referred you to somebody?
no, but they were kind enough to move the deadline.
Oh, okay.
But
Well, it shows
Yeah,
that they
it's-
respect you enough that they would do it.
that's true. And of course, that told me something about this collaborator.
Yeah,
It's one thing if it really is something you can't help and
right.
can't get around.
Like
but-
legitimate illness or something. Stuff
Right.
happens.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's anything I haven't asked you. Gear phobia. And
Oh.
please, I don't want to get a bunch of emails about this because I don't mean this to be sexist in any way, shape, or form. I'm actually bringing it up from a go ladies perspective. But, men grow up when we go through high school, we like a Camaro with mag wheels and a Hurst shifter. Right, Nathan? I mean, we like to tinker, whether it's with computers or cars, and women seem to have less desire. I'm not saying less skill or less capacity, but generally speaking, less desire to get involved with things that are gear or tech related. And I don't mean that across the board. I'm only looking at it from the musical perspective. I've met a lot of female singer-songwriters that are extremely capable as writers, but they're intimidated by, it's too hard for me. I have to go to somebody else to record and produce my stuff, and it really holds them back. And I contend, just because you're, a different gender, I mean, there is no logical reason why your gender should hold you back on a tech level.
Right.
Just my own personal observation, owning Taxi all these years, I've seen less women that want to get into the tech stuff. Okay, not that they're less capable, but just have less desire. And it upsets me because I don't want to see them held back by, for whatever reason, they're somewhat tech phobic. How did you learn the tech stuff? And can you say anything to encourage other women that may feel that it's not in their wheelhouse to do?
Yeah. Now, I married a tech guy. Nathan taught music technology at the university where I got my degree.
Oh, so you cheated, is what
10
you said.
years.
You had an inside job there.
And ran a music studio. And I've never really honestly been interested in the tech side. So early on, I was like, Nathan, come and help me.
So you're substantiating what I've observed.
It's horrible, right?
That's okay.
But then we hit a point around the time we moved. So around the time I joined Taxi.
Okay.
When he said, okay, I don't have time to do this. You need to figure it out.
Go, Nathan.
And I was not happy. But it was one of the best things that could have happened because honestly, my productivity just shot through the roof compared to what it had been. Because I didn't have to wait for him. I wasn't depending on him to fix things and do things. I could just do it on my own.
It's such a funny observation because I know so many women who are very adept at the technical stuff that you would need to do graphics on a computer or other things on a computer. It's not that they're afraid of computers across the board, but when it comes to learning Pro Tools, even GarageBand, which is, that's an afternoon to figure that out, and it's a week to become proficient, I would say, on GarageBand, which is far more capable, I think, than people think it is. It's certainly good enough to get started on. It really bothers me that in other areas of computer tech related stuff that ladies seem very comfortable with the technology, but I've heard this my entire career since computers have become so important to making music, and there's just no good reason for it.
Right, and there are so many tutorials
on YouTube
available nowadays.
Unbelievable.
It's
a different world. My daughter Hannah was becoming a very good singer-songwriter, and at some point she said, what can I do to become better? And I said, learn how to play guitar or piano, because you can't just keep writing it in your head and writing down lyrics. And she took my Strat. That was on a Tuesday morning, like 8:30 in the morning. I was leaving for work. And by the time I got home for dinner that night, she could play 2 chords on my Strat because she watched YouTube. By Friday, awesome. She was better than, not that I'm a great guitar player by any stretch, but she could play every chord you needed to be a solid songwriter by Friday. And I said, how did you learn that? Just by watching YouTube. Yeah. So there you go. Anybody, no matter your gender, if you're tech phobic, you know what? And now I'm going to sound like an ageist. I see it with older people because they didn't grow up with computers. And kids are so comfortable because they've grown, most kids have an iPad by the time they're 2 now. You know what? There's no age and no gender that can't learn this stuff. And it's really important. Not that I want to take work away from the people who own studios, but you need to be able to work at your own pace. And you don't want to spend the money and the time every time you're making something.
Right. And so You don't
You're-
depend on other people.
You wouldn't have 350,000 spins of your music if you had to wait. Yeah.
Right.
Let's see, is there anything we haven't covered yet? Oh, books you'd recommend. You and I are fans of the same author, and why don't you go ahead and recommend Stephen's books? Because everybody watching the show, if you want to be inspired and you want to get your business and artistic sides in sync and productive, listen to Lydia.
Yeah, I really like the Stephen Pressfield books. It's the War of Art, Do the Work, and Go Pro, I think.
Yeah, I've not read
you can
Go Pro.
Google them.
Stephen Pressfield, Pressfield.
It's an easy read. I read them pretty quickly, but they are very, very good. And it gave me some really good things to think about in how I view my career and how I prioritize things like that. It helped me a lot. So.
Yeah, you can't read one of those books and not walk away a better person and more capable of launching your career after reading it. They're must reads. They should make that required reading for every kid that's between like junior high and high school.
Yeah, they really should, because it's not only about, well, what we do. And obviously he's an author, he's a writer, so.
Yeah, it's basically a get your act together book. It inspires you. It's not formulaic. It's not like, here's this giant, massive pile of stuff you have to do. It's just you read this book and you go, wow, I can't believe I've been foolish enough to not do these things.
Yeah.
Common sense, you know it, and then you read it in a piece on a page in the book and you go, duh. And finally, do you have any inspirational or sage advice for your fellow members, which I asked on stage, who'd like to be sitting up here, which right now we're on the imaginary stage at the Road Rally. Any inspirational parting advice?
Yeah, something I've been thinking a lot about lately is that when we often say don't compare yourself to others, but it's so hard not to. And
oh, you know my mother. my mother always said that, but yes.
Oh, really?
But Johnny got an A. Thanks, Mom.
There you go. But when we do, we see their highlight reel. We see the cool things, and we don't pay attention to the time they spend preparing for those cool things. And I have a friend who got a really cool job at a TV show here in LA recently. And someone else on the set said, oh, you're one of those overnight success. Because to him, he came from nowhere and got this cool position. And he said, well, yeah, if you count 17 years of stand-up comedy, working behind the scene on documentaries and TV shows, networking and all these things, yeah, sure, then I'm an overnight success. And it made me think about my own life and, to not look down upon those years, because success comes when preparation meets opportunity. And if you meet the opportunity but you haven't prepared, you will fall flat. And nothing cool will come of it because you weren't ready. So those years are important, and don't look down upon those years, but enjoy them. And that's the other thing. Don't feel like, I have to rush through this preparation so that I can do something cool. But really do live life and don't lose track of the people around you.
Everybody, we live in this like fast food, ADD, Facebook, internet, speed of light society where people, let's face it, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, you would have to go to a library to look something up.
Yeah.
Or to get a tutorial on how to run, Pro Tools. You'd probably have to go buy a book and sit there and invest 10 hours to read the book and trying stuff. And now you can watch a YouTube video and solve whatever particular problem you're encountering at that moment in 3 minutes. So I think everybody expects life to move faster and for results to come easier and quicker.
Right.
And I mean, look at the number of years that you spent from the time that before high school, when you made the decision to go into music, before you ever got your first penny from making music.
Yeah.
How many years was that?
Yeah.
That had to be, 20 years?
Yeah. And I'm glad I didn't quit.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have, but.
I don't know. You're very inspirational to me. I had Lydia on the successful member panel, I think 3-4 years ago
Yeah.
at the Road Rally, and I remember there were a bunch of guys who were all very inspiring to me on the panel, but Lydia and I locked eyes for a minute, and it was just like we both knew. She knew how much I appreciated how much she inspires me. So thank you. Do you guys have any questions before we wrap this up? Because you can. You've got her sitting here live, and we're not under the time pressure that we were at the Road Rally. It takes a minute. There's a little delay. So we'll just sit here. Dun, 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 dun.
Oh.
She is a very talented lady. Okay. Come on. Lydia is awesome. Thanks, Casey. It seems like just 12 hours ago, 16 hours ago, Casey and I were giving each other a hug in the lobby, and there he is on the other side of the country.
Okay, now they're coming.
Right. Which brass? Okay, what's your hardware setup and what's your brass?
All right. Let's see. I use 2 Mac Pros that are linked together. And I have a K2500X keyboard. Someone asked if I'm a keyboard player. I grew up playing violin and viola, but I do consider piano my main instrument now, because that's what I use.
Here's an interesting question. I'm not sure I understand. Do you have fades during the 2-minute cues?
Do you mean, maybe they mean like place where they can cut?
I'm thinking that they might mean edit point because you
Yeah,
wouldn't,
edit point.
Yeah, you wouldn't drop the master fader in the middle of a cue. But
Right.
If he is asking about edit points, do you build those into your cues?
I do keep that in consideration. It's not every piece I write have that, but it does help the music editor if you do.
It seems like it would be tough if you're doing a very legato orchestral piece, a little harder to put an edit point in there versus a pizzicato piece would be like every bar could be an edit.
Yeah, or suspense pieces, you can usually put some edit points in. But
So I hope that's what you're asking.
someone asked about the trumpets on Eternal Flame.
Okay.
That was live trumpets. So I was very happy to be able to work with an actual trumpet player for that one. When you can add real instruments, it makes such a difference.
And which monitors do you use? When you're not working on the headphones, you go to mix, which monitors?
It's Yamaha Infield, I think it's called.
Near field.
Near
Airfield.
field.
Okay.
HS10.
Anyways,
NS10s?
NS10.
Oh, okay. That's
NS10s.
what's sitting back here. Right there, over her shoulder. Yeah, that shoulder right there. Those are NS10s. Do you do a mix and that's it, or do you do any sort of mastering? That's a good question.
I do mastering, and right now I have ML4000, and up until very recently I just kind of picked a preset, and I'm actually in the process of learning more so I can go in and really tweak it with the EQ and all of those things.
Somebody asked why you use 2 Macs and not just one more powerful Mac.
Yeah, they are both pretty good, but it's because I do so much orchestral, and those libraries take so much power. And for a while, I was only able to do some few tracks. Then I had to turn it into audio and do some other ones. But then, if you want to change something in the piece,
Oh, man.
yeah, it's a pain.
Yeah, and really slows you down.
So, yeah, exactly.
So this way you're able to keep like all the processing intensive work on one computer, and the other one is basically where you're building stuff. So like all the strings would live on one computer, and basically all the Pro Tools session stuff is on the other one, and that way you're just kind of playing the strings off of the other computer and not using it up. Okay, makes perfect sense. When you can't get live for orchestras, do you edit the articulation yourself, then retain those settings for future use? Very good question.
I do I like to call it creating the performance, which is why it takes so long, because you're not performing one instrument anymore. You're performing every instrument of the orchestra, which is why orchestral takes so long. I usually don't retain the settings. I'm not sure. I mean, I go in and work with the dynamics and articulations. I mean, it depends on the phrase for that specific piece. I try to think how that would have been played on the violin or the trumpet, so it's going to be different depending on how the melody is and the rhythm. Hope that answers your question.
Somebody asked, how do you compose your cues? I think you kind of answered this before. Maybe the Polly. Hey, Polly, how you doing, man?
Well, I could say yes. Sorry.
But he wanted to know if you start with a melody or chords.
Ooh, that's a good question. Actually, often I sit down and improvise at the piano. So I guess it's kind of like a mix. I think usually the melody, well, I don't know. I haven't thought about it.
We'll update you in a future episode.
Yeah, there you go. I'll be back.
I hope so. This is fun. Can you do the strings? Some of these are fragments. I don't understand. It's like half a question, then a foot later is the other half of the question. We need a book, Demystifying Lydia's Cues. Very funny, Casey. That's a play on Dean Crapane's book, Demystifying the Cue.
Do I use Sibelius? I can answer. It's only if it's going to be performed live or recorded. I started out writing concert music out of college. So then I use Sibelius all the time. But now when I do for TV, when I'm also creating the performance, not only the notation, I use Digital Performer.
All right, one or two more questions, then we're going to wrap it up because I promised my staff I'd let them go home early today. I'm such a nice guy.
Nice.
Yeah, considering they worked a gazillion hours over the weekend and then just took everything out of the trucks today. I think they deserve an hour early. Any recording books that you'd recommend, or did you learn everything on YouTube or from having Nathan? That was really fortunate on your part, I've got to say, to have a music tech guy under the roof.
Yeah, that's helped.
Can I borrow him for like 6 months?
What do you pay?
Not enough. Were there any books that you like? Do you keep any books nearby? Like as a reference, that if you're doing something and you don't want to take the time to go watch a video, where you can just look in the index and go, Compressor 101 or something, or not really necessary.
I have the Digital Performer book, which is, where's my hand? Here. It's really thick.
I know, it's funny.
Yeah, so that, because there's so many things you can do within that program, but specifically for like mixing or stuff, I have a lot of books in a bookshelf right there.
Okay. And how'd you learn to mix? That's a good basic question, because back in my day, it would be 4 studios under one roof, and you could hang out in other people's rooms and hear how they were mixing and learn from them. So because you're isolated living out next to the llamas, I'm guessing you were self-taught as to what a good balance was.
Yeah, a lot is to just listen and try different things. What happens if I turn this knob all the way over here? How does that sound versus all the way the other way? Mm-hmm. And then you find what you think sounds good. Now, and I have watched a lot of YouTube videos. Now, I do have the advantage of saying, hey, Nathan, I'm trying to figure this out. Can you give me some pointers? But a lot has been just trying. And he often tells me, you have to just do it and listen. Use your ears.
Yeah.
So, but of course you need to have a starting point. So that's where you would want someone to talk to, or a book or a YouTube video.
I'm kind of amazed sometimes. We get demos into Taxi that I always use this analogy, but it sounds like somebody took a Gillette double-edged razor blade, which would be kind of dangerous, but it sounds like a thin metal guitar pick on an electric guitar that's been taken direct. And it's like, really, you couldn't hear that sounded incredibly tinny and overly bright. I don't understand how people can not notice that and either roll off the top end or add some bottom end or do whatever they need to do to just make it sound like a normal guitar. But they don't have another person sitting in the room with them.
Right. And you need to train your ears. it's early on I thought my orchestral music was amazing, and I didn't know why, some people didn't want it. And then I started listening more because I was so focused on writing my music that that's what I heard all the time, and I had stopped listening to the real deal. And then so I went back. Someone told me, you have to go back and listen to actual real orchestral things. And I turned it on right after I listened to one of my pieces, and I went, oh, I hope no one heard this other stuff.
Talk about depression.
So, yeah.
Oh, man. So how did you get better? Just kept listening to more stuff and doing A-Bs between yours and the real deal?
Yeah.
That's got to be
and then
challenging.
try to recreate that sound.
Can you like shut your eyes and map out an orchestra where everybody is? If you were looking at a bird's eye view of an orchestra, can you see where, the cello section would be, where the violas are, where the harps would be, and pan your instruments so that it lays out like a real orchestra?
I can. Now, I grew up playing with orchestras.
Right, so you're seeing it from the other perspective?
Yeah, I see it from the viola section.
Right.
But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So everything sounds like as if you were sitting in the viola section.
Well, I turn around when I mix.
Okay. I always panned my drums as if I were sitting at the drum kit,
Oh,
and that was the
really?
opposite of pretty much everybody else, because everybody else I knew at the time mixed as if you were watching the drummer on stage. So my toms always went from high to low, and
That's
theirs
interesting.
went high to low that way. So,
Yeah.
but I'm left-handed. What can I say? And I always favored my left ear. Mike Moriello says, yep, there's the 10,000 hours thing again. Yeah, it's so true, but everybody wants to do 10,000 hours worth of experience, quality, and expertise, and get it in 50 hours. Can't do it, right?
Yeah.
All right. Which brass software? I thought we covered that, but maybe not.
For that specific piece, I use Live Performers. But when I do use brass, I have Cinebrass. I have... Nathan, do you remember the name of the other one? No.
Albion?
No. Well, I don't remember. You can email me and ask. And I will tell you.
All right. Well, people are saying goodnight on the other end, so why don't you and I say goodnight? Thank you so much for tuning in, you guys. And Lydia, once again, I don't want to give you a kiss or a hug because my wife is really sick, and I could be a carrier, but I'm just, I delight in hanging out with you, and I'm just so proud of you and love your family, and I get the whole thing, and just continued success to you, and I hope we can have you back up there for some other lofty award someday for, the most number of plays ever in a single season or something. And just continue the great work, because you are everything that I imagined when I started Taxi. And I remember saying, like, great musicians can be anywhere. Great music could come from anywhere. And everything that John Braheny embodied or cared about, people working hard at their craft. Craft was like his favorite word, and being realistic and perseverant and all that stuff. You are all that stuff. So
thank you.
You really richly deserved the John Braheny Award, and thank you to all you guys for tuning in today. It was great to see many of you at the Road Rally and meeting some of you for the first time. We will see you next week on another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live. Bye-bye. Yeah, studio audience today. Yahoo!